Alright, so this video is for Gary, but it might help some other folks out there as well. Let me just make sure we're on the table and not on me because I hate being on camera. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about building a 3-string slide cigar box guitar. First things first, you have your box. I use a 1-inch flat bit like this to drill the sound hole for the box because I'm a righty. Drill it in that bottom left corner so that when I play it, that's where the sound hole is. It's completely out of my way. Then I use a coping saw and I notch out for a 1x2 of oak to fit through the box because this is going to be a through the box design. I'm not going to have a separate end piece on there. So basically those are the holes I use in the box, just like so. For the 1x2, I start out with a 36-inch length of oak. I use a belt sander to knock down the edges, sand it a little bit by hand, and then I just rub it with Danish oil. That's all I do for that. Down here at the bottom, you'll see that I've notched out a 1/4 inch of material to allow the top of the cigar box to actually vibrate and give me a little more volume, right? You don't want this snugged up tight against the bottom of the box because then it won't vibrate, you won't get any volume. So you want to notch that out a little bit, and then you want to put a heel on there because what you don't want to happen is for this whole piece of wood to start to bow with the tension of the string. So we definitely want to make sure that we notch that out, but that we use some original Titebond glue and some clamps overnight to maintain that structural integrity. So we do that. You'll see at the bottom I have 3 1/8 inch holes. Those are for the strings. And I actually pop the pins out of pop rivets that are a 1/4 inch by 6 millimeter grip pop rivets. I just buy like a box of 100 of them. I pop all the pins out, and then this just fits nicely right in there and acts as a string ferrule. You want to have these in here because the string, as you have tension on the string, it's going to cut right into that wood whether you have oak or not. So you want to have something metal there to stop the string from eating through. Up here at the top, I've drilled 3 holes, 5/16 inch holes for CB Giddy economy tuners. The main thing you want to know about these is you want to kind of dry space them, make sure that everything fits properly. And when you install these things, you want to make sure that the brass wheel is pointing toward the tail of the guitar. That's how these go. So you got to make sure that you put these in here properly. You don't want to put those in upside down, then they don't. The gear doesn't work properly to actually put tension on the string. So that's how you want to put those in. The little screws that come to hold these tuners in place will strip out, so you want to either pre-drill with a real small drill bit, or you want to at least kind of poke a hole and get your screw started, and be careful with that because you don't want to strip those out. Let's see here. So let me show you kind of as we went along here what I did. So I put the neck of the guitar all the way through the box. You can see that I have the string ferrules inserted down here at the bottom. I used just a couple of 1 1/4 inch number 10 screws, wood screws here, to affix the lid to the actual neck of the guitar. And you can hopefully kind of see the gap there that allows this to vibrate and give you some volume. You could just put like a little tiny nail or screw or something in there to keep this lid closed once you're ready. And you can see I've started putting my tuners on here. You see that? Okay? So, a couple other notes about this. If you wanted to make this a fretted guitar, you could buy a fingerboard from CB Giddy, or you could buy another 1/4 inch piece of 1x2 and create your own fingerboard. In order to create a fingerboard, I use a coping saw just like this one here. I cut slots using the appropriate fret scale. That's really the most important thing, is that you get your measurements right. And what I'll do, and here's a good example of it, is I'll just get a piece of 1/4 inch 1x2, right? And I will use that coping saw to cut the slots all the way down. I will buy some medium fret wire from CB Giddy Crafter Supply online. And I cut the chunks to about the width they need to be, right? And then I just put them in here and I tap them in. You can either lay another piece of board on top to tap them in. You just don't want to do metal on metal. I have a little rubber mallet that I use, or I'll just grab a scrap piece of wood to pound those in. I do not glue or anything. You really don't need to. I've never had one come loose. And then again, I use my belt sander. And I use my belt sander and I just run this all the way down it until these are all smooth all the way down. And then I actually will do it at an angle to give the beveled edge to the frets. And honestly, that works just fine for me. So that's what you do if you want to actually fret it. If you don't want to fret it, you could just leave it like so and put like a little taller bridge and nut on this to raise the string up a little bit. And you can just use it as a, as a slide guitar. And you just mark the frets in the same place, almost as though you were going to cut and fret it. You just mark it with pencil or pen or whatever you want to do. And then you know exactly where to put your slide in order to play this guitar. As far as the nut and the bridge for my guitars, I'm just using, and forgive me, I don't know what this is. Maybe it's a, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 3/8, something like that. I just use little chunks of threaded rod. You can use pretty much any material that's going to raise that string up for you. The problem that you can run into, though, is that if you don't have something with, ridges or that's threaded like this, it doesn't hold the string in place. So the string has a tendency to slide around if you just use like a, like a big fat nail or something like that. So you definitely want to use a piece of wood where you cut some grooves in it that keeps the string spaced properly, or use some threaded rod and just cut it down in chunks. I've used screws and cut off like the tops or the ends of nuts and bolts and that kind of stuff to make that work. So this, like I said, this is probably a 1 1/4 inch chunk of 3/8, and I'm going to use that actually for a nut and a bridge on this guitar here. So hopefully that kind of helps get you started, and just let me know if you have any questions.